Today has been the first proper test day for the AMR 25. It's well underway. Drivers and engineers tend to say that the first glimpse of the car is normally revealing. How it's been this time?
I guess the first glimpse of the car is by covering it in sensors, in aero rakes and some extra instrumentation, and we've been conducting a series of experiments, so trying different components on the car to try and link our understanding of data measured at the track with data from wind tunnel and CFD and driver in the loop simulator work. Yes, you get a glimpse, but we need to finish these experiments off and then draw conclusions from that, and then we can move forward from there. So we decided that the best thing to do is to use 3 days to check the systems, do some good robust experiments, and then conclude at the end of it, and then work out which way to go.
First of all, thank you very much for this interview. A lot of Spanish fans right now are looking at you, and I guess that they are trying to find some kind of bright in your eyes or some kind of hope in your words. What can you explain to Spanish fans who are waiting and suffering a lot to have another win or maybe another championship for Fernando?
We're working tremendously hard as a group of engineers and operations people to make a fast race car so that Fernando and Lance have a chance of winning a race. Last year, a huge amount of effort was put in, but we were almost running too quickly to do the job really thoroughly and well. And as we all know, that if you rush, there's a tendency to cut a corner. And if you cut corners in this business, you lose the correlation between what's going on in the factory and what you're delivering to the circuit. And I think that was part of the problem last year. Both Fernando and Lance gave us great feedback last year. They've been working, well in the new simulator to try and help direct the focus for the aero platform and the mechanical characteristic of the car. Yeah, we're pushing to deliver that to the track. So is there a glint in my eye saying we're on the cusp of something great? I hope that we're on the journey to get our methods to work really well. And I strongly believe that if we can do that, if we can get our engineering to be very thorough, the understanding of our engineering tools to be very thorough, and we don't cut corners, but we work methodically and as a team where everybody knows what they're doing. This efficient football team analogy of everybody on the pitch knowing exactly what they're doing. And then I believe that our progress will be strong. And then when we look around, maybe we will have overtaken some of the other teams. And then we just keep working. We just keep working solidly and methodically. And that's the way I think, high performance organisations are created. And that's the way, therefore, motorsport products are created that go out and win. So, I'm excited that there's so much that we can improve. And that's what gives me the enthusiasm that, we, Aston Martin, with Fernando and Lance, can move forward up the grid.
Fernando has said that for Aston Martin, a good season would be to match last year's, not performance, but she resulted fifth in the championship. It is possible to get a fifth place in the championship in 2025? Is it possible to get something better, or is it impossible?
Everything's possible.
Everything?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, everything is possible.
I see the bright in your eyes now.
It depends on how you prioritise and how much time you've got. I love saying to organisations that our objective is to make the impossible possible. Yeah, that's what pioneering, high-performing organisations go out to achieve. And that's how you win in motorsport. We've got this challenging year, much like all the teams, where we're racing, where everything is the same as last year with regards to regulations. No change in the regulations over 48 races. There is the aspect that the running order from last year carries over, apart from the effort that you put in through the winter, and then there's the development race through the season. But 2026, there's all new regulations. Yeah, we become a works team, so we're working closely with Honda Aramco on the fuel and Valvoline on the lubricants, and creating our own transmission and our own hydraulic system and our own rear suspension, and going from, a customer team to a works team. And that takes a lot of new capability, new capacity in the factory, and how do we balance up the effort that we've got, the restricted effort in the wind tunnel and in CFD? How do we split that? Do we put it all on 2025 and go chasing a great championship this year, or do we put it all onto 2026? So what would you gentlemen do? And this sort of discussion is being had up and down the paddock, which makes it very exciting. One thing you've got to be is very efficient with the resource that you've got. So first, make the most out of what you've got, and then work out how you split and make sure people aren't straddling between the two campaigns, and push hard, set some tough targets. So what's possible? We're looking at it over 2 years, really.
A bit in that sense, which has been the main limiting factor in the car 2024, and which mistakes have you done last year that you won't repeat this year? It's
always difficult to condense, a list down to the key things. I think last year, as I mentioned earlier, we were running so quickly to release updates that the quality of the surfaces we were creating perhaps wasn't as good as it should be. And the focus on aero performance with the car in a very narrow window, a high-speed, straight-ahead condition. And therefore, perhaps not looking so carefully at the characteristics of the car, with wind coming across the car, with the car yawed, with steer angle on, which then means that the car's edgy, it's peaky, it's difficult to drive. Perhaps when you put the soft tyres on in qualifying, a brand new soft tyre, and a really strong lap from a driver, you can move up. But then in the race, you tend to drop backwards. So I think last year's car was peaky, was difficult to manage over 310 kilometres of a race. Is that a mistake, or is that... It's hard. At the end of the day, you have to prioritise, and you have to work in a direction that you believe is the best to go in. It's quite a ruthless industry, Correct. One driver wins, one team wins, the other 19 drivers are... What was it Ron Dennis used to say? Second is first of the losers. And 9 teams have lost. But actually, when you look at how close the grid is, everything's exceptionally tight. And so those small little changes of emphasis drop you down, make it hard. So our emphasis this year is to make the car more benign, a more drivable platform. And this is something that you hear lots of teams talking about. This isn't a unique, direction, and it's hard to do. To create an aerodynamic shape where it's just focused on one direction. Picking up downforce is easier than a shape that's at an angle and the tyres are throwing air across the bodywork. So it's hard to generate downforce when you're chasing a car at a different attitude. Mm-hmm. So the number of points of downforce you find per week is probably less, but maybe it's more rewarding in lap time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, we're all chasing lap time improvement.
Andy, you talked about this 2 minutes ago, but I have to make this question and try to get an answer. Do you have a date to stop working in the development of 2025 car and start working in the next car?
Well,
do you have the date? But probably you don't want to tell me.
No, I can. It's more complex than the simple date that you're looking for. So at the beginning of January, we were permitted to start doing aero development work, so CFD work and wind tunnel work on the 2026 car, and we did start. Right at the beginning of January, and every team will have a concept group that are doing conceptual work, course CFD experiments and coming up with the architecture for the car and the aero platform for the car. So we've started on that. We are, however, focusing on how this car, pointing to the track, how this car is handling and how we can optimize the collection of parts that we've already created. So concept group are 100% on 2026 already. When it comes to some of the mechanical detail, that's going to be the summer. Yeah, when the final, so when are the radiators going to be released for the 2026 car? Probably September, October time. There'll be a rough layout worked out in the next 2 months or so. But, the final design is going to be released later. However, we all need to be careful because testing is earlier next year. It's the end of January that we're in Barcelona compared with, the back end of February. So everything's a few weeks earlier for the 2026 car. So we've got to factor that in as well. So I can't give you a single date when the whole factory swaps over. Every single department transitions at a different rate through the year. And some of the percentage of CFD and wind tunnel time will really depend on what we learn over these 3 days of testing here in Bahrain, and also the opening races. Bahrain's a different circuit, very rough tarmac, quite windy, as we're finding out today. We go to Melbourne, we go to Japan, go to China before that. 3 quite different circuits. So maybe by the time we've finished in Japan, we'll know where the 10 cars are, where we are in the championship. But everybody will be doing the same. Everybody will have the same debate that, we're having. And I doubt anybody will be able to give you the straight single date that you'd love us to provide for this interview.
Engines will be key in 2026 regulations. You are an engine specialist, actually. I know you have a more general role now, but your team is converting to a works team, as you said before. You are working, I suppose, closely with Honda, and how you can influence, control, change what's happening in the engine for 2026, and where do you see yourselves compared with others? And I know it's not only rumors, there are meetings, and maybe you can know a bit how it's going.
It's tremendously exciting to work with Honda. They're got a very strong racing heritage, have been winning World Championship in the last few years with powering Red Bull and Max. They're a great organisation to work with, great racing, creative, really hard-working group of engineers. When I joined, I went to visit in the opening month, went to Sakura and visited, and I was nothing but impressed with the work that they're doing and their approach and their hunger to improve. I know there've been reports in the press, where Honda have said that it's very challenging. Well, at this point, everybody is challenged. Yeah, at this point in a development program, you run engines until you get a failure. Yeah, or you're surprised with an early failure. And that's one of the great things about engine development. You do it all in the factory. There are test cells where you can mimic race weekends exceptionally well. You can do performance testing. You run combustion systems until you get, very high pressure knock conditions, which breaks things. And every power unit engineer typically has a desk covered with broken parts. I would say that, if a power unit manufacturer isn't having failures at the moment, perhaps they're not pushing hard enough. Yes. And perhaps they've not set tough enough targets. But I'm sure they all are having failures at the moment. I'm sure they're all having that same journey, but perhaps not saying so.
So you won't answer that, no? Where do you see yourself?
We won't know. We won't know where we are against everybody else until we're racing in 2026. And a race car is made up of many components and how they fit together. And sometimes you trade a little bit of horsepower for lower drag and better weight distribution in a car. And sometimes you have horsepower, but you have a bit of drag, and it's down to weighing up how you make the fastest race car. You know, it's a collection of systems coming together, and it's all those systems that need to see the checkered flag first on Sunday.
Today is February 26th.
Yeah.
So I think that next week you will have two wizards in your team. One is Fernando Alonso, you got him from 2 years ago. But Adrian Newey will join you next Monday, I think. With those two wizards and all the people who is working, those professionals who are working in the factory, do you think Aston Martin in 2026 could be a championship winner team?
We're really excited that Adrian chose to join Aston Martin. Yes, he joins us next week. Fernando and Lance, tremendous drivers. As you say, you know, the team at Silverstone and at the campus, the 1,000 people there, and the wind tunnel, and the driver in the loop simulator, and all the other tools that we're pulling together. We're pushing so hard. Yeah, we are ambitious. We want to win races. We want to win championships. And what we're going to do is focus on what's in our circle of influence. So all those systems that come together in the race car, and we want to make them, you know, to be the best. Each system to be the best. It depends what the others do as to whether we win or not. Yeah, and regardless of what we achieve for 2026, I'm sure every single person will say, I can do better next time. Yeah, and that's the thing that I want to instill in the business, is that we look at what we've got in front of us, we're critical of what we've just created, and we think of ways of getting better, and then we get better as quickly as possible. And if we do that across the whole business, whether it's the communications team, HR, IT, finance, aerodynamics, vehicle dynamics, yeah, whatever it is, yeah, every single area I want to be, you know, self-critical, improve as quickly as possible. Because then I believe the race car will get better and better and better. And if our improvement rate can be steepened, we'll pass our opponents. And even if we're ahead of them, I still want us to have that attitude where we just get better and better and better, and then we'll stay ahead. That's our journey. When? I don't know, because I don't control the other 9 teams.
But it's not linked to 2025. I mean, you could be 5th in 2025 and win in 2026.
It depends on the others as well as us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your questions. They were very good.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.